morning, everyone, and welcome to the online service of the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, spirited, and inclusive congregation. My name is Susan Pratt, and it is my pleasure to serve as your worship assistant today. We will begin our service by taking a moment to acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in the Port Townsend area are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimicum people. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands, the flora and the fauna. In a moment, we will be lighting the chalice, but first, let us settle our minds and still our hearts with the ringing of our chime. It is good to be together. Let us now join voices with Linda Bach for our call to community, Come Sing a Song With Me. She is accompanied by Sheila Harwood.
Come sing a song with me, come sing a song with me, come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind, and I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find, and I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me, come dream a dream with me, come dream a dream with me, and I'll know your mind, and I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find, and I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me, come walk in rain with me, come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind, and I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find, and I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me, come share a rose with me, come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind, and I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find, and I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
It is now time to light our chalice. If you have a chalice at home, please join Christina and me in bringing a light into this moment that we share together. Our chalice lighting words today are by James Villa Blake. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening words this morning come from Kathleen McTeague. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment. until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. The house of laughter and silence, memory and hope is hallowed by our presence together. I now welcome Beau Ohlgren, our Director of Family Ministry, with a story for all ages.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Inauguration Week. This Wednesday was an incredibly momentous occasion, a true day for us to grow as a country and remind ourselves of our better futures and our incredible opportunities. And let it not be a moment where we rest. Let it be a moment where we are pushed forward, where we continue to hold our politicians accountable and continue to hold one another accountable, and to be audacious in our justice seeking. And I wanted to share this story about continued growth called Anti-Racist Baby by the incredible scholar Ibram X. Kendi and illustrated by Ashley Lukashevsky. And this is Anti-Racist Baby. Anti-racist baby is bred, not born. Anti-racist baby is raised to make society transform. Babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. Take these 9 steps to make equality a reality. Number 1, open your eyes to all skin colors. Anti-racist baby learns all the colors, not because race is true. If you claim to be colorblind, you deny what's right in front of you. Number 2, use your words to talk about race. No one will see racism if we only stay silent. If we don't name racism, it won't stop being so violent. Number 3, point at policies as the problem, not people. While some people get more, others get less, because policies don't always grant equal access. Number 4, shout, "There's nothing wrong with the people." Even though all races are not treated the same, we are all human. Anti-racist baby can proclaim. Number 5, celebrate our differences. Anti-racist baby doesn't see certain groups as better or worse. Anti-racist baby loves a world that's truly diverse. Number 6, knock down the stack of cultural blocks. Anti-racist baby appreciates how groups speak, dance, and create as they choose. Anti-racist baby welcomes all groups voicing their unique views. Number 7, confess when being racist. Nothing disrupts racism more than when we confess the racist ideas that we sometimes express. Number 8, grow to be an anti-racist. Anti-racist baby is always learning, changing, and growing. Anti-racist baby stays curious about all people and isn't all-knowing. Number 9, believe we shall overcome racism. Anti-racist baby is filled with the power to transcend, my friend, and doesn't judge a book by its cover, but reads until the end. We as a country are young in our knowledge and are young in our justice, but we will overcome and we will move forward as we work together.
Thank you, Beau. Now I have a couple of announcements to share with you. First, registration is now open for the spring semester of our adult learning programs, known as ALPS. These virtual classes and field trips are free of charge and open to anyone, so don't miss your chance to expand your horizons. To register, please go to the home page of our website, QUUF.org, and click on the red tag on top that says Adult Programs. Our second announcement comes from our nominating committee. The announcement in this week's update, as well as the service announcement, will be the last reminders for any who may want to nominate themselves for the nominating committee, since our deadline is January 30th. As of this recording, we have received no nominations in response to these weekly update notice. If we still have no response, we have the board's blessing to go ahead and fill our 2 upcoming vacancies in our usual manner. And now, I'd like to acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. You are invited to say hello in the chat section and tell us your name and where you're from. We also hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour after the service. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat section at the end of the service. And if you don't currently see the chat section, simply take your device out of full screen mode and the chats will magically appear. Lastly, if you find this service useful or inspirational, and hopefully both, we'll share this link with your friends. Please share this link with your friends and family. We get great joy in widening the circle of our online connections. So welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here. It's now time for the offering. Today, our offering will go to Jcira's English as a Second Language program. Jcira, Jcira, stands for Jefferson County Immigrant Rights Advocates. Here to tell us more about this important program is Jean Wallet.
Good morning. I'm Jean Wallet, and I'm here to represent the organization that will receive our designated offering. Jefferson County Immigrant Rights Advocates, or Jcira for short. Jcira supports immigrants on the Olympic Peninsula in a variety of ways. So last February, a long time ago, Jcira had just committed to 2 new programs. We took on year-long financial sponsorship of 2 transgendered asylum seekers from Central America who were released from detention and who now live in Port Townsend. And we had just taken over funding of the ESL class that the YMCA had formerly sponsored. Then COVID hit, and suddenly hundreds of immigrants on the North Olympic Peninsula, many of them essential workers, were out of work and desperate to pay for rent and food. Many weren't eligible for federal help, had no employer benefits, and no access to unemployment. Nor are these typically people who can work from home. We scrambled. With help from the Jefferson Community Foundation and really from the whole community, we were able to distribute $200,000 in need to people in need. And while our money was running out, we also connected immigrants with funding that developed over the summer from other organizations. At the same time, we continued providing access to low-cost, immigration-related legal services. And this year, well, we're again getting daily requests for financial help, so trying to meet that need will continue to be a focus. Jefferson Healthcare has asked us to help get immunization information and appointments out to immigrants. And we will continue advocating for better immigration policies at all levels and try in a small way to counter the still strong racist and anti-immigrant feeling throughout our society. Our connections to all of you run deep. Half of the Jcira board are QUUF members, as well as many supporters. We're an all-volunteer group, so whatever money you give us goes directly to families or to the programs that serve them. Thanks so much for your ongoing time, energy, and financial help.
If you'd like to donate to this worthy cause, you have 3 options. You can text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen, or go to QUUF.org and click on the word Giving, or simply mail a check to QUUF with Jcira in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to La Golondrina, sung by Soraya Campbell, with images of Port Townsend and Guatemala. This is dedicated to Jcira and our local immigrant community.
¿A dónde irá de los y fatigada, la golondrina que de aquí se va, por si en el viento se alarga extraviado, buscando abrigo y no lo encontrará. Junto a mi lecho le pondré su nido, en donde pueda la estación pasar. También yo estoy en la región perdida, oh cielo santo, y sin poder volar. Dejé también mi patria idolatrada, esa mansión que me miró nacer. Mi vida es hoy errante y angustia, y ya no puedo a mi mansión volver. Ave querida, amada peregrina, mi corazón al tuyo acercaré. Voy recordando, tierna golondrina, recordaré mi patria y lloraré. Recordaré mi patria y lloraré.
We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone, thinking in particular of the new chapter we have just entered as a country. May the chaos that hate and hatred that has held us hostage these past years lose its hold. And as we move forward, may we recommit ourselves to upholding our precious and fragile democracy and the Constitution upon which it rests. And now, within the congregation, we have a few birthdays to celebrate today. The first one is for Kristen Smith, who celebrated her birthday on January 13th. Kristen, as you may know, is one of our volunteer music coordinators, which helps explain why Sunday service music is still so good, even though we don't have a choir these days. Thank you, Kristen, and happy birthday. The next one is for Kathleen Croston, who turned 75 on January 14th. You may recall that Kathleen just had hip replacement surgery. So, although we don't want to encourage any dancing quite yet, Kathleen, we do hope that you'll be able to do so in the near future. So, along with our happy birthday wishes, Kathleen, we also send our best wishes for continued healing. This next one is for Beth Pope, whose birthday was on the 18th. Happy birthday, Beth. And Amy Johnson, whose birthday was on the 19th. Also, David and Diane Bomer, who each had a birthday on the 20th. Happy birthday to all of you. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence, which will be followed by a musical response. Our reading this morning is entitled The Quickening. It is by dancer and choreographer Martha Graham. There is a vitality, a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium. It will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how it compares with other expressions. As you contemplate this invitation to express yourself authentically through movement, let us listen to Sheila Harwood play Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Our guest speaker today is the Reverend Mark Gallagher. Mark served for 21 years as the pastor of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Vancouver, Washington, having previously served several other West Coast congregations briefly. He still lives in Vancouver and has a private practice ministry of teaching, preaching, and leading workshops. He has spoken at QUUF several times. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Mark Gallagher.
Good morning, friends. It is a tumultuous time in our nation, obviously, especially in the last few weeks. I'm recording this just after our new president has been inaugurated. Thankfully, the violent insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th seems to have subsided rather than spread in the intervening days, though divisions in our country still run deep and remain intense. I'm very glad to experience some normalcy in the presidential transition, but I'll be surprised if it's all smooth sailing from here. My sermon message was not conceived with the current political situation in mind and is not primarily about dealing with political strife, yet it does apply to that. I want to hold up a basic concept for living in relation to other people. Something so simple as to seem almost cliché, and yet at the same time so contrary to our usual habits that it might feel like too much to ask. It applies from everything from mundane personal interactions to emotionally charged events in the news. What it boils down to is this: be yourself and accept that others are themselves. I like to use the shorthand, be, let be. See, is it too obvious? We all know this, sort of. Be yourself and let others be themselves, blah, blah, blah. And yet in reality, most of us find it rather difficult to stay centered in ourselves when others seem to be demanding or expecting that we be different than we are. When we are at odds with others' expectations, there is frequently a rather anxious and automatic reaction to either accommodate them or to oppose them, rather than just be ourselves and address the conflict if need be. At the same time, when others are acting contrary to our expectations, it's common for us to have anxiety about that. Not just registering that they are different from ourselves, or that there's a conflict we might need to negotiate, but an emotionally charged ego reaction, like, why the hell are they like that? How dare they? Not accepting that they are the way they are. In other words, we struggle to be ourselves in the face of others' expectations, and we struggle to accept when others go their own way in the face of our expectations. Ralph Waldo Emerson, that great champion of self-integrity, said this: "There is a time in everyone's education when they arrive at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that they must take themselves, for better or for worse, as their portion. It is the harder because we will always find those who think they know what is our duty better than we know it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But great is the one who, in the midst of the crowd, keeps the independence of solitude." To stay true to maintain the integrity of the unique being that we are, even in the presence of others who would have us conform to their notions. I like the way Friedrich Nietzsche described the compulsive urge to distort or misrepresent ourselves to gain the approval of others or to avoid their disapproval. He said, "You cannot endure yourselves and do not love yourselves sufficiently. So you seek to entice your neighbor to love you and gild yourself with their error. For lack of love and acceptance of our true selves, we put on a bit of a show. To some extent, we anticipate what others will approve and accept and present ourselves as something more in that direction. It's obvious, I suppose, that the approval of others for a doctored version of ourselves can never gain us the self-love or spiritual at-homeness for which we ultimately yearn. It is a simple but deep and elusive thing to really accept, love, and be ourselves. In other words, to love the life that is ours to live. Perhaps it goes without saying, but it goes better with saying. No one can do it for us. Not our parents, our siblings, our spouse, our lover, not our friend, our neighbor, or our dog. Well, maybe the dog. Many do find it easier to be their unedited selves with their unconditionally adoring dog than with people. Family systems theory, developed by Murray Bowen and others, makes this matter of remaining true in ourselves while relating to others central to healthy relationship. It's called differentiation of self, or just differentiation. The undifferentiated self is emotionally bound up with others and therefore highly reactive to them, most especially in relationships that are important. When very undifferentiated, we may find it difficult to disagree or say anything we suspect the other might not like. We may find the prospect of being at odds with them intolerable, or nearly so. A kind of emotional emergency. That is to say, we become anxious. Alternatively, we might find ourselves reflexively opposing or criticizing what the other does or says. The classic case is a teenager in relation to their parents. Whatever the parents say, the undifferentiated teen automatically discounts it. This is sometimes also seen playing out between spouses and partners. You see, it's the same in that either way, our behavior is an automatic reaction to them, rather than being a reflection of our own mind and heart. Undifferentiation is a tendency to be either in submission to or rebellion against the expectations of others. Differentiation is the ability to remain centered in ourselves while others are being the way they are. We don't have to be the same. We don't have to be the opposite. We can be ourselves and see what happens. Consider this scenario. The doorbell rings and there are some Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses at the door. Pre-COVID times, say. For a lot of people, this is a high anxiety situation. Don't answer the door. Close the curtains. Don't let them see you. I used to feel like that sometimes. But over the years, my doorstep conversations with Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses have been a veritable clinic in differentiation. In the first place, they are trained to be highly differentiated. They notice other people being anxious and avoiding them. And when people do answer the door, they're often treated dismissively. That would be a situation that would be very anxiety-producing for most of us. We'd be likely to get defensive. But they don't take it very hard. They don't take it personally. They're doing their thing, and they realize perfectly well that other people are going to do their thing. So it's instructive and inspiring to see them just remaining calm and good-humored in the face of other people's emotional reactivity. In the second place, they know very well what is important to them and what they are hoping to impart, which is a message that they think could save someone's soul. But they accept other people not buying it. They don't hector or berate or smirk. With calm confidence, they say, "We believe this and that and the other thing." And then they ask questions like, "What do you think happens when we die?" Or, "If you don't believe in the Bible, how do you decide what to believe?" And then they listen carefully and sincerely. In my case, they listen for a good long while. I had been thinking that it was a situation to dread having them show up at the doorstep, but it turns out to be a very respectful conversation about deep things in life with some people whose views are quite different from my own, but from whom I pick up not a whiff of antagonism. It turns out to be perfectly okay for us to converse and to connect in mind and heart while very much disagreeing. At least that's been my experience. A key feature of undifferentiation is projecting responsibility for our feelings onto others. "You make me so mad," is a trademark undifferentiated response. Translation: my feelings do not arise from within myself, but are caused by you. You make me so mad. Now, someone may think, well, they did make me mad. Are you saying I'm not supposed to get mad when they fill in the blank? Certainly, you have whatever feelings you have. I'm not saying you shouldn't. What I'm saying is that their behavior and their feelings are theirs. And your feelings about that are yours. Early in our development, we are reluctant to take responsibility for our feelings. Very often we've been shamed for our feelings, and so we become ashamed of them. And so we want to lay responsibility for our feelings sometimes on somebody else. Later on, we begin to see that our liberation lies in the fact that others do not determine our feelings, even if they are very important to us, like a parent. Now, some people hear this about being ourselves and letting others be themselves and think it means not caring about people, being disconnected from them. But when we are differentiated, we can notice and care about what is going on with the other person and stay connected and engaged with them without fear of losing ourselves. We can let them have their feelings. We can let them be responsible for their behavior. We can then express our own thoughts and feelings and respond from our own integrity. In other words, we can have a healthy relationship. This is possible precisely because we do not feel swept up in reaction to them. Here's an illustration. Mother calls adult daughter from a distant city, inviting her and her family to come for Christmas. She hardly ever gets to see those grandchildren. Daughter hates flying, doesn't have much vacation time left, and in truth, has really been looking forward to having Christmas morning with the kids in her own home. But having low differentiation with her mother, she doesn't say that. She says she'll try to work it out. Then for weeks, she avoids the issue, getting a pit in her stomach every time she thinks about it. Daughter sees only 3 possibilities. A, to acquiesce and make the trip home, but churning with resentment. Or B, to lie and tell her mother that she couldn't get the time off, and then feel like a bad daughter and not really an adult. Or C, to screw up her courage and tell her mom off for always having to be so controlling. Do you see how all these responses come out of the feeling, I can't be me in this relationship? The avoiding and the pit in the stomach tell the tale. The only difference in the 3 approaches is where the blame goes and whether or not it is expressed. The blowing up at her mother is just as much about the inability to be and let be as is the acquiescing and the lying. But it's not true that we can't be ourselves in a relationship. It's just that we feel anxious about revealing ourselves and perhaps facing judgment and rejection. That same daughter, in the same situation, but operating with a robust differentiation, might say, Mom, I know how you love seeing the kids, and they miss you too, but it's really important for us to have Christmas in our own home this year. How would you feel about coming here? There are many other things the daughter might say, and there's no telling what the mother will do or say. The question is, can the daughter be true to her own feelings and desires and let her mother have her own experience while staying connected, honestly, genuinely connected? It might be that after talking it over, the daughter decides that for whatever reasons, it really is more important this year to accommodate her mom than it is to have Christmas at home. But now she can do that without abandoning herself and capitulating. She can make an adult choice out of love and generosity. In that case, her experience and her mother's and everybody else in the families will be very different. Better, I'd say, than when it's spiked with resentment or self-recrimination. There's no guarantee of how the other person will respond when we reveal our true self. They may become conciliatory. They might freeze up and get nervous. They might become hostile and make accusations, or something else. Sharing our feelings honestly is not a technique for controlling other people. They are still them, and that needs to be okay with us on some level, even though it's not always pleasant. Half of differentiation is remaining true to ourselves. The other half is letting other people be true to themselves. Not letting them really, but accepting it when they aren't the way we wish they were. Our spouse, partner, child, parent, or friend is, again, doing that thing which gets our goat. It's not just that we don't like it or that we think it's unwise. We take umbrage. It's an affront. How dare they do that? What is the matter with them? You ever get like that? I have found that pretty much anytime something gets my goat, it's because at that moment I am not differentiated. If I can find a way to accept the fact that the other person is who they are, then I feel like I am myself. I face a situation, and most likely I have feelings about it, but without the whining, without taking umbrage. Now let us consider the case of outrageous things in the news. Has there, by chance, been anything in the news recently which has jerked your chain? Anything that has had you pulling your hair out? Well, having strong feelings about what's been going on is natural and normal and not unhealthy. Values that we hold dear have been placed at risk. In the last year and in recent weeks, we have been witnessing social disruption and strife at a level not seen in this country for 50 years. Around the pandemic, around police behavior and broader racial issues, around the election, and even the very stability of our democracy. With respect to differentiation, we see on the news and we read about in newspapers and magazines people saying and doing things which drive us crazy. It's the driving us crazy part that I'm concerned with here. For myself, I notice that a lot of the time in my reaction to things on the news, I seem to be taking it personally, getting my ego involved, grousing about that idiot or those people. It's almost like having a little tantrum, adopting the posture of a helpless, complaining child. If that happens to you, I suggest you try taking a moment to reorient yourself. Return to the fact that you are where you are encountering this news. You're watching TV, you're looking at a computer, you're reading the newspaper or something, and you're encountering this piece of news, this story. Bring to mind the fact that that person out there that you're reading about or seeing has their own motives and their own reasons for what they are doing. Not saying that all motives and reasons are equal. Some of them I would consider irrational, ill-informed, unkind, or immature. The thing here is to focus on the fact that there really is a person out there who is the way they are. And you don't like the way they are. Maybe you're afraid of what might happen. Maybe you're angry about what's going on. Them being the way they are is not a violation of your integrity or your sanity. In a sense, it's not your business. That is them. They are part of the world in which you live. Your response to it, including your feelings, is your business. In sum, I share 2 short reminders that I use when I need to restore myself to a sense of differentiation, return to my integrity of self. 1, I am always responsible for my behavior, never for the behavior of others. Always responsible for mine, never responsible for them. We'll leave aside now the question of parents and children. And secondly, if someone is upset or disappointed with me, I am sorry for their sake, not anxious for my sake. If somebody's disappointed in me, I may care about that. Probably I do. And so I may or may not wish to change my behavior. But if so, it's not because of reflexive anxiety on my part that I just have to accommodate them or I have to oppose them. I can live from my own integrity and meet them honestly and genuinely. Here's what it comes down to. Being true in ourselves, honest with ourselves, centered in our living experience, and accepting the fact of another person being, doing, thinking, feeling, speaking in a contrary manner, even when they are important to us, especially when they are important to us.
Now, let us join voices with Linda Bach for our closing song, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple."
Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right.
It's almost time to extinguish our chalice, but before doing so, I want to remind you that next Sunday, our final guest speaker will be Reverend Peggy Clark from New York City. She will be preaching on the spiritual power of stillness. Now please join us in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After the service, I hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour. Hope to see you there, but first, let us turn our attention to Pat and Doug Rodgers as they sing our postlude, Bright Morning Stars.
Bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Day is a breaking in my soul. Some have gone to heaven shopping. Some have gone to heaven shopping. Some have gone
more.